Good morning, everyone. My name is Annie, and I am part of the product management and SAP Analytics team in Palo Alto. And today I will be presenting this webinar titled Modifying Existing SAP Lumira Extensions to Better Fit Your Needs. Now, in case you guys are wondering, this picture is actually a machine that is trying to take in existing visualizations of data charts and modifying them to make it into what the machine wants. And this is precisely what we're going to be dealing about. Okay, so these are our agenda items. So today what we're going to cover is basically an introduction to what are Lumira visualization extensions, what are they, and what is the developer community. And then we're going to dive into a sample extension, and we're going to see what it looks like, and then we're going to demo how we can modify that extension, which is the main part of our webinar. And we're going to try and deploy that in Lumira and see how it works. And then we have other use cases, and then we also have a summary and 15-minute Q&A time at the end of the session. Now, what is this webinar about, and why are we all here today? Now imagine you're a manager or maybe even just a team member, and you have so much of data in your hands, and you really want to use that to make something meaningful out of it. For example, you have statistics data, you have team reporting data, or you even have sales data, and you really want to see where your company is going, where your business is going, and you want to make something meaningful out of your data. So you decide to use data charts to visualize your data, and you're like, okay, I have a few charts that I can use. I can put my data into those charts and see what I can make out of it. But then you're like, okay, some of them don't make sense because the data charts that are available don't really go well with my data. What do I do? And then you discover there's custom charts for Lumira, which are, well, custom visualizations that you can see can be catered according to your data or the way your data looks. And then you just have one last, request. You're like, okay, I want to make this meaningful, but I also want to customize it according to the way I want it to look. And that is precisely why we're all sitting here and watching this webinar. So let's start with our first topic, which is Introduction to Open Source Lumira Extensions. What are these extensions, and what is the developer community? So before we get into that, you all are aware of what SAP Lumira is. It's a self-service BI data visualization tool that you can use to grab in your data and visualize your data using the different built-in visualization charts that come with it. In different categories like bar charts, pie charts, bubble charts, or geographical charts, the standard visualization charts that we have. And apart from that, what are extensions? Extensions are precisely plugins, software plugins for this particular software that we call SAP Lumira in order to enhance the functionality that it has, which is showing you or enabling you to use different data charts. Now, these extensions have custom visualizations, which are basically different illustrations of data, and which go far beyond what the built-in charts already have in Lumira. And you can see on the side there's different screenshots of different visualizations, which look very different from standard charts, but that are very useful in showing you how you can customize the way your visualization or the way your data looks. Okay. Now, there are two types of extensions. There's visualization extensions, which are primarily visualization charts of different types that we just discussed. And we also have data access extensions, which are primarily data connector plugins through Lumira that allow you to collect data or retrieve data from different sources on the internet like Twitter or YouTube Analytics, etc., and pull them into Lumira so that you can visualize that data in a better format. We will not go into data access extensions in detail in this particular webinar, but we will focus more on visualization extensions. And before I go into that, I want to show you what exactly these extensions are. So if you go to Google and you Google Lumira visualization extensions, you will get to see our GitHub space. And on the second link, you will see the open source visualization extension. So if I open this one, this is basically our SDN page. And most of you are aware of SDN, I believe. And SDN is the space where we share all of these visualizations and we make them open source to everyone. So you can see we have different chart types that are categorized according to their type, and we have links to people, the people who have developed them, the developers, the blocks they've written, and also the links to GitHub. Now on GitHub, which is the first link that we clicked, on GitHub we have all of the open source visualization extensions, and you can go and check these out. We currently have about 56 of them right now, and you can go to any one of them and you can like click on them. You can see a little preview of what the visualization extension would look like, and there's also instructions on how you can use the data in your lump file, which is the Lumira file. And here we've included everything. We've included the lump file, we've included the data set, and we also have the installable extension file, and the source code is all included in this folder. So that is primarily our GitHub space and our SDN space. And this is precisely what I will show you right now, which is the developer community. As you saw, the developer community consists of two parts. We have our SDN space and the GitHub space. And what this really means is basically we have a community of different developers who write or develop extensions or who come up with solutions to bugs in code or any issues with visualizations or any sort of extension in order to enhance Lumira. And we have this community so that people can ask questions, people can answer them. It's basically building our very own community of developers who help each other share their knowledge and improve the usability of Lumira in terms of extensions. So I am pretty sure you guys are all aware of SDN, and please go check out our GitHub space as well if you haven't yet checked it out. And it's a very good place to start learning and sharing your knowledge and learning more about how Lumira works and how much you can enhance the usability of Lumira. Again, the open source extensions are contributions from the developer community, and we do not support any of these extensions, but again, the developers of individual extensions are free to, they're free to help you, and it's again all about community contribution. People can check them out, people can try out different extensions, share their experiences, so it's basically supporting each other within the community. They're all free to use, and you can download them and modify them as you want. On the other hand, we have extensions from the extension marketplace, which are essentially the same visualization extensions, but they're developed by our SAP partners. And again, they're paid extensions, but they also come with warranty and support and service. I will show you how to get there. You go to Google, and you Google Lumira Partner Extensions, and you go to the first link. You can see the list of different extensions that are over here, and these are all developed by our partners. Again, it depends on the individual partners on how you can get service and support for all of these. So please feel free to go check them out. All right. Okay, so we're done with the first section of our presentation. And now we're going to move to the second part, which is a sample extension, country visas, chart with tooltip and image. Interestingly enough, this was one of the entries from the SAP Lumira Business Hackathon, which we organized last year in September in Palo Alto. I will give you guys a preview of what this visualization looks like. So now if I go to GitHub, you click on country visas, chart with tooltip and image. This is precisely what the name of the extension is. And there you have the extension. which we will get to in a bit, and we have the source code over here, which we will need in a bit. Now, if I open Lumira, I will show you what exactly the chart looks like, and I will explain to you what the chart does and how we can actually modify that according to the way we want. So I already have it in a lump file. I'll just open that. So that is our chart. It's basically a stack column chart. Well, it may not look any different than a stack column chart, but there are a lot of differences actually. You can put in your own custom images, and it's got its own color. It's also got its own custom tooltip, and also it has a very interesting data set. Now, what the data set represents is basically applicants from different countries for different visa categories over a certain time period. Again, this is big data. We're just doing it for the purpose of demonstration, but you can use it similarly for any sort of data. So you can see how all the values stack against each other. The measures here are technically the different categories of the visa applicants. Like we mentioned, you can move them around and see how the columns stack up against each other, which is very interesting. The measures, again, are quantifiable entities of a chart that you can actually measure against a certain axis. And the dimension is basically what defines these measures. So for here, our dimension is the country. And this is precisely what our sample extension is, and we're going to focus our redevelopment on this extension. So while you're looking at this extension, you might wonder, what can you customize over here? What if I want to, compare something else instead of applications for visas? Well, that's very interesting because there are a few questions that I've figured out that I would want for myself, and I believe this is what you guys are thinking as well. And if there's any more suggestions, please feel free to contribute to that as well. So here I figure we can add our own images instead of the flag images if you want to compare other entities or other aspects. And you can add your own colors. There's 3 shades of blue here, but yes, you can put in your own. And you can also customize your own tooltip. They have a nice tooltip there, but in case you want to add something else, which is very helpful. And you can also put in your own data, which is pretty much what we're going to cover today. Okay, so time to get started with the demo. That is development or redevelopment in SAP Web IDE. And now before we get to the demo, I want to show you what our goal is today. Today, we want to develop something that is similar to what I just showed, but this is essentially, again, fake data that I made up for the purpose of this demonstration, but it can be very much used in a real-life scenario. These on the x-axis are different products. Let's say you're working in a team or you're working in a company and you have so many products that you want to compare the revenue generated off and in different continents. So on the right, you can see the legend for the different continents. And you can see how much revenue each of these products are generating in each continent. And the images are basically the logos of the product. Again, fake images I just put for the purpose of demonstration, but you can always put your own images, and I've also put in the tooltip as well. So this is our goal. How do we get there? So number one, we're going to create a project in Web IDE. So this involves SAP Web IDE, which is primarily our tool for, or our development environment for creating visualization extensions, which is hosted on the HANA Cloud platform. And the SAP HANA Cloud platform. And this is primarily an inbuilt, it's something like Eclipse that allows you to put in your visualization code and package that into an extension that you can install in Lumira. And number two, we're going to copy this existing source code into this project, and we're trying to rebuild it by tweaking some things. Number three, we're going to modify the copied source code the way we want it to look like. So to make this easier, I created a workflow that will shows you what are the steps required in the process of redevelopment. And we have steps 1, 2, and 3, and here we have steps 1, 2, and 3 in the flowchart as well. So number one, we're going to go for project creation, and in that we're going to set up our environment, but I wouldn't actually set up the environment. I will show you how to do that. I will show you a blog post, but we're not going to go into detail. And we're going to create a project, and then I will show you what the important components are. So before we go into that, in order to set up a WebID account, you need to be able to use the HANA Cloud Platform, and for that, the instructions are very simple. Just go to the open source visualization extensions gallery. That's the one that I was showing you about, and with the different charts. And there's the link, Get Started with WebID. I feel like this is the easiest way to get there. So this is a blog written by one of my colleagues, Dong Han, based in Vancouver. And he's actually given us instructions on how to get started with the HANA Cloud Platform and get started with WebID. And to get started with WebID, you also need the plugin called BizPacker that I was talking about earlier. And he guides you through how to get that installed so that we can start using WebID. So assuming I already have my WebID, this is typically what your WebID platform will look like. And now what you have to do is create a new project. So I'm going to go to File, New, and create a project from Template. And here, you can go to the drop-down. Sometimes the visualization extension might not appear, so you need to click on the visualization extension project, and you just click on this, and click on Next, and you put a product name. So again, we're going to compare different products, generating their different revenues in different continents. So I'm going to call this Productive, mostly because I like Greek names, but also it sounds cool. So I'm going to call it Productive. I'm going to call it Productive 2, actually, because I already have it in my workspace. And we're going to put the name Productive here. Productive 2. Okay, so before I go into the details of why we're filling up this information, let me take you back to SAP Lumira. If you go to the Extension Manager by going to File, Extensions, this is where you can install all of your extensions, and by clicking on the manual installation. So here, there are different extensions that have already been installed. And you can see over here, there's the title of the extension, there's the version number, and there's the person who created it, and a little description. And this is precisely why we need to fill up this part accordingly. So every extension has its own unique extension ID, and the reason for this is because all the extensions that are installed in Lumira are included as part of Lumira's DOM structure, and Lumira has single DOM structure, so we do not want different extensions to have the same class names, because if there are two extensions with the same class name, let's say for the axis, the formatting might overlap, and the visualization may look different from the way you want it to look. And so to avoid that, to make each extension unique and look unique, we recommend that everyone has an extension ID, which is unique. And the way we put up an extension ID is you put in your company name. So I'm going to call that SAP, and you can put in your own company name. You can also put in your own name. That's fine. And you can put this, EXT, which stands for Visualization Extension. And then you can put the name of your extension. I call it Productive 2. And the version is precisely what I showed in Lumira, which is the version number of the extension. And then for company name, you want to put in your name, because that is where it's going to show in SAP Lumira. It's going to say created by. And that is precisely what we want to show people. All right, That is precisely what I want to show people. You don't want to show that the extension was created by your company, but you want to show that it was created by you. So here I will just put my name and description and have the enable compatible mode turned on and go to next. And here you're allowed to choose what chart type you want. You can choose an SVG, you can choose the div, etc. And usually our chart types are created using SVG because D3 primarily uses SVG. So in order to render chart elements, I prefer using SVG. But then you're free to use what you want. And you can also choose a chart title. In this case, I don't want a chart title, so I'm just going to turn it off. And the extension we're dealing with has a legend, actually, so I'm going to turn off this default legend. And then I go to next, and here I browse the data. So this is my custom data that I was talking to you about. And again, these are different products, and these are the revenue generated in millions over different continents. Now, measures and dimensions. Earlier, I briefly mentioned what measures are and what dimensions are. Again, measures are basically quantifiable entities in your chart or in your data that you can measure. You can show the measure over an axis. So this is going to be shown over the y-axis. So I'm going to call the measure set y-axis in order to make it more universal. And the dimension here is going to be product, which is essentially what we're going to measure the measures against. And we go to next, and you finish creating your project. So now you'll have the project in your workspace, which is called Productive 2. And now we go back to GitHub, and we go to the source code. Now you'll see that the structure of the source code is exactly as what we can see in Web IDE. So you have, if you put this together, you have bundles and features and a few files that are required for the project, but you don't need to worry about that. So now you go to bundles, and there's SAP Biz, EXE, Productive, which is essentially the name of your, the unique ID that you gave to your extension, which is precisely what we're going to see in GitHub as well. And everything else is contained in this project folder called Productive 2. And we have this as a source folder. And if you see, in conjunction with the source folder, we have the bundle.js file. Now, if I go back to GitHub, you'll see this, the same project structure. So you go to bundles, and this directly forwards to the name of your company, Viz, EXE, and the name of your project. So here, again, if you look, you have the source folder and your bundle.js, and you will see what this other external resources is. It's called d3tooltip.js, and this is an external library or an external resource that we're going to use in our project. Pardon me. So this isn't really necessary for creating a tooltip. You can put a tooltip inside your render code, but I'm showing this for the purpose of showing how to use an external library as well. So we can see that it is in conjunction with, or it is parallel to, or it is in the same folder with the bundle.js. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the containing folder and right-click, import from file system, and this is how we bring in the third-party tool or library. So I have it here on my desktop. I will bring it in. So I have the D3 tooltip along with the bundle.js, which is good. Now, if I go into the source folder in Lumira, in GitHub, and I will try and access the source code. So we have JS resources and style. And if I open this, it will be the same structure. We have JS resources and style. JS is primarily your JavaScript, and style is primarily your CSS. So when I open style, I have default.css. And when I have open JS, I have render.js. So these two are the only important files that you will need to deal with in a project typically. unless you're changing your measures and dimensions or the way your data is structured during the course of development in Web IDE. Okay. So now in render.js, you need to put in all of your visualization implementation code. And in default.css, you put in all of your CSS. So we will deal with this in a bit. And now I'm just going to show you, we imported the external library. And now if you go back to GitHub, you go to resources. And there's a folder called images, which is precisely what we need in order to import our images. So if you click on here, you already have those PNGs that we saw in the original chart. Now if you go to resources, we need to create the images folder because it's not there by default. So we go to File, New, and Folder. I'm going to call it images with, I'm going to call it images, I'm going to call it images with a lowercase I. And then I'm going to right-click on images and import from file system. And I have a series of images here, so I'm going to import them. So right now we have about 9 or 10 images. So for the purpose of saving time, I will not import all of them, but you get the idea of how you can import images. So I'm not going to import all of them, and I'm going to abandon this project because we actually have the same project created until now with all the images imported. So I've done that ahead of time so that we can save more time during this webinar. Pardon me. Now that we have all of our images imported into the project folder, let's see what we need to do next. Okay, so again, going back to step 1, we set up the environment, we created a project, and I showed you what the important components of the chart are. Okay. Now we go to step 2. Actually, we covered part of step 2. I showed you how to access the GitHub code, and I also showed you how to get the external resource. So now we're going to do part 3, that is copying the code, and then we'll eventually go to the tweaking part. So if we go back to Web IDE, and we go to render.js, this is precisely what we want. So you can see a top-level defined function, and then you can see the render function, which contains, or which is supposed to contain all of your visualization code. Now you go to GitHub, and we go to JS, and you look for render.js, which is precisely what you need to copy. So again, we're not building it from scratch. We're just trying to take an existing extensions code and trying to modify it. So we just copy everything that's inside this render function. Copy it, and we paste it over here. And in case you guys were not aware of how Web IDE indents its code, you just click on Control, Alt, and V. Or you can also do it here. Edit, Beautify, that's Control, Alt, and V. So we've copied the render code, and now we want to copy the CSS code. So we go back, and we go to the style, and we go to default.css, and we copy all of this code. Right? And we indent it as well. So we copied everything, and we assume that it would work. Let's see if it works. Okay, that took a while. Okay, never mind. Oh, that's right. That's because in the initial project, we imported the d3toolkit.js, but we didn't import it here. All right. So sometimes we need to check for stuff like this that might, maybe even small things, but sometimes your project may go haywire because of small things like this. So yes, we import the d3toolkit. Okay, there we have it now. And also, another thing that we did not do is require the tooltip.js. So we have required.js, which is embedded into WebIDE, along with D3.js and jQuery to support extensions. And using using require.js, you can actually require your external library. So here, I'm just gonna copy the require. And one thing you should know is if your JS file is called, let's say, blah.js, you need to have it as blah over here, or depending on what the name of your source file is. And in case it's not a JavaScript external resource, in case it's a JSON or something, for example, if it's d3 tooltip.json, you do not put in the file extension, you just put in the name of your file, which is d3 tooltip. So now that we required it, we have something that works, but no, we don't quite have the images, and the colors look like they're repeating themselves. Okay, so this is exactly where we're going to get to tweaking the extension. So now we're going to go to the third part of actually rebuilding this extension. We will cover the data measures and dimensions. We're going to make sure that we have all our data in there, and we're going to correct the image path so that we make sure that we have all of our images. And then we're going to try and fix the color, and we're going to fix the class names. We're going to make it unique, and we're also going to alter the colors a bit. So we go back to SAP WebIDE, and we're going to see where the measures and dimensions are at. So if you see your measures and dimensions are defined over here, this is a custom property that comes in with WebIDE. You can call it data.meta.dimensions or meta.measures. And the x-axis and the y-axis are precisely the names of your measure sets. So if you're declaring your dimensions or your measures, you need to name them accordingly to the measure set. Or you can check it out in one of the blogs that I've written, which I will share at the end of the webinar. I will show you how to do that without having to enter the measure and dimension set. And now we want to make sure that our data is in there. So I will put a console statement for the data, which is predefined as part of the project. So we're going to see what our data actually looks like. Again, we do have our data because we can see how the columns are stacking up against each other, but we want to make sure that it is really there in case you want to debug or just see that, you know, you have your data in there. So I press Control-Shift-J, which opens up your developer console, and you can see there's an area of different objects, which basically contains all of your data. So we have our data, which is good. Okay, I will put this out. Okay, now the next step is fixing the image path. So I go back to WebIDE. So we have our images, which is a lowercase I, and we will scroll down and we will try to find out if we are requiring this image. So that is over here. We have a statement, we have a function where we actually require the image. And the reason why the images are not getting captured is because this one is with an uppercase I, whereas that one was with a lowercase I. Another thing that we should know is the file extension for the images, which is .png, needs to be uniform throughout, and they need to be the same for all of the extensions, all of the file extensions for all of the images. And this is precisely what we're putting here. For example, if it's uppercase PNG, you need to put an uppercase PNG here, and they all need to be the same. Also, we have our data set with different words. If, for example, the name of your image is my space image, with a white space, of course, it's not going to work because in WebIDE, you can only import images with no space. So you want to make sure that's the case, and you want to make sure that the names of your images are exactly corresponding to the names of the data set, the data in your data set. So we have that. but we still don't have our image because if you see the required URL, you have resources, you have images, but you see this, the name of this source, the folder is not the same as what we have over here. So we're going to change that to SAP_viz_ext_product. Okay. Now let's see if we have the images. And there we do have the images. Okay, great. And now the next thing we want to do is we don't want the colors to repeat because if you notice, there's only 3 colors that keep repeating themselves. So we want to change that. Now we scroll up and we go to where the color is defined. And this is where we define our color. So again, as I mentioned, there were 3 colors that kept repeating themselves. What we can do is basically add 2 more colors because we have 5 measures right now. So what we can do is go to Google. And I personally like this website called colorhex.com, but you're free to choose anything that you want. And we copied the darkest color that is already in the chart, which is this one. And I want to put something that's darker. So for instance, I want this color. I copy that. I go back to WebIDE and I add that over here. Okay. Then I add another darker color. Let's say I add this one. And I add that as part of the range. Okay. And now we should have different colors. Okay. And again, you're free to add them wherever you want, and it really depends on what colors you're looking to use. So here, I feel like the lighter color should go first, so I will put it here. Okay. Okay, there we go. So we have a lighter to darker transition, and that is precisely close to the goal that we try to achieve. And we're going to move the image a bit because I don't like it coming up on top of the stack column. So we're going to go where the images were required, and this is the Y attribute of the image. So we're going to increase that a bit. Oh, actually, we're going to decrease that a bit by 20. And we have the images on top of the chart. And I also want to alter the tooltip a bit because the values are $1 million. So I will just go to that. I will go up here where the tooltip is. And here I'm just going to add $. Again, you're free to use your own currency. This is just an example. And million, and we go back to the extension and we refresh the page, and we have 61 million, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so again, and in case I wasn't clear earlier, you click on the project folder, the main project folder, you click on run in order to run it. It will open in a new tab. So it looks like we've covered, well, it looks like our extension is ready, but for that, I'm just going to show you how you can change your colors. So in case you don't want a custom color and you just want to use the default color palette that comes with Lumira, you can also do this. You can just use the color palette. The color palette is defined up here. And this is a custom property that comes shipped with WebIDE, and also you can just use it in Lumira. And this is precisely what it will look like. This is what color palette comes with Lumira. But unfortunately, this is not what I like. I want to put my own colors, so I will go back to putting the original colors that we did. So I have this. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to pack it actually, and I will save it here in my desktop, and then I will go to Lumira, and in the extension manager, I'm going to manually install the extension that we just created and imported. Oh, sorry. Oh, looks like I already have it installed, which is great. Okay. So I'm just going to go and create a new document. And we have our product data. I'm going to import in the data. All right. And from here, I will select the name of the extension, which is projected. And here I am going to fill in the measures and the dimensions. Okay, so we do have our images. And we're going to populate the measures. And this is precisely what we wanted. We tweaked it a bit, and we wanted to make it look the way we wanted to cater to our data. And this is what we've achieved. And again, everyone can do this. It is a very simple process. So we covered all of the development process. And a few things that you should always remember are there shouldn't be any white spaces in the image name. So if you have mySpaceImage.png, that's wrong. You need to have myImage.png, and it will work. And also the image name needs to be the same as the name of your dimension in your data set. So if your image is called bazinga.png, it needs to be the same as what's in the data set. And you can also you should also have uniform image file extensions, which means that all of your images should have the same file extension. If it's .png lowercase, they should all be the same. And also it's case sensitive. .png and uppercase PNG is the same. It's not the same because JavaScript is case sensitive. And also your class needs to be suffixed with your project name. Well, prefix actually, but we haven't done this because it does take up a lot of time, but I will show you how to do that. And we've also deployed the extension in Lumira. And before I go to other use cases, I will just show you what the class names are actually. So if you go to your default CSS, this is precisely the name of your class. So what you need to do here is replace it with SAP_biz_ the name of your extension, or basically the class name that you assign to your source folder, and you need to replace that and put that in front of each extension or each class name of the extension, and this will help your extension to be unique. And now we move on to the last section of our presentation, which is exploring other use cases. So again, we had our original chart, and then we had our example chart, the one on the top right. And then on the top left is another example that I will explain to you about. It's basically the number of SDN blog views that we get every month for every extension, and we use this data to build our, get foresight or insight into our developer community and see how popular our extensions are. So this is precisely what example 3 is. And we also have example 4, which is just another example I made up to show where you can compare the social media popularity of different artists. And again, you can do so much more with this. For example, it's not limited to only this chart type. These are different chart types. So there's the core chart, the one on the top, which has a different use case. But here I've altered it for my own use case. And really what I did was just add different colors and just map the data measures and dimensions. You can also do this. It's very simple. It's the same principle that we've been following, basically just changing small things. And we also have the scrollable timeline chart over here, which is more like a project management chart created by my colleague Wendy. And we have really what she has done here as well is follow the same principle, just tweak a bit of colors and measures and dimensions, and this is what you get. And you can do so much more with that.
Can the extensions be reused in Design Studio?
So just to make this clear, that's what we're doing right now, trying to make sure that all the extensions are also migratable to Design Studio. Yes, some of them work, and a lot of the extensions are just basic extensions. That means they don't require external resources. So those ones work in Design Studio, but there are also other extensions that require third-party libraries like TopoJSON or GeoJSON, or even image files. Those ones for the moment do not work as yet, but we are working towards that. We're trying to make all of these extensions equally usable in both Lumira and Design Studio.
Question from Venkat. I created an extension through the Viz Packer, I guess, in Lumira 1.25, but couldn't use the same extension in Lumira 1.29.3.
Right, yeah. So when you create it for the VizPacker tool for Lumira in 1.25, it most probably may or may not work in 1.3, but again, on our Learn How To page, we have mentioned that we recommend using WebIDE because that is more compatible with the way Lumira works. And yes, VizPacker is one of the tools that you can use. But again, those are for the older versions of Lumira, and currently it is best to develop them in 1.29. In WebIDE for 1.29. And it's usually not a very major change. It's very easy to migrate them.